Alright, what's up guys? It's Sauce Man K here, and let me just say before starting this video that if you see this, you see any of my other videos, just make sure to like and sub. I'm trying to get my subs up so, I can actually, gauge whether I want to, pursue doing this stuff as, a side hobby or whatnot. So, if you see this, just drop a comment, drop a like, let me know how you like the video. But today, we're basically just going to be going over, Dragon Ball Super, right? If you've seen a lot of my videos are Dragon Ball based, right? And one thing you might not know about me is I'm a massive Dragon Ball fan. Watching Dragon Ball since I was like in preschool, I used to have the old orange bricks. I remember for one of my birthdays, my mom got me the Dragon Ball GT box set. I watched that whole thing. It was fire, right? Looking back, Dragon Ball GT is definitely not fire, but But, today, we're going to be talking about the Dragon Ball Super manga, and I guess a little bit of the anime, right? It's mostly just, Dragon Ball Super in general, I guess, right? And it's the problem with it, all right? I don't know if any of you have really, kept up with the manga as of late, but it's been pretty bad, okay? The last couple months, I think, if not almost a year, has been basically filler, right? We've gotten the superhero manga retelling, which nobody asked for, nobody cares, right? And then before that, we got the Goten and Trunks little spin-off manga section, which that was fine for the first few arcs, but ultimately no one cares, right? Who cares about Goten and Trunks going to high school? Nobody wants to see that, right? And this comes directly after the Granola arc, right? Which I have my own thoughts and opinions about that, which I will bring up later. But we all know that the Granola arc ended on a pretty high note, right? With Black Frieza, True Ultra Instinct Goku, and Gas's final form. All that crazy shit happened, and it just ends, right? And then, Whis flies off with Goku and Vegeta, Frieza just leaves, and then we spend the next 8 months going to high school with Goten and Trunks and watching Trunks get dunked on by some random kid we've never even seen before. Like, who the fuck cares? Genuinely, who cares? It's just such like a waste of time, honestly. And that would probably have to be my first, real criticism is it's mostly a waste of time, right? There's no real, I guess, like story to be, told here, right? You go back to Dragon Ball Z and it's a pretty consistent narrative all the way through. It has its slow points, but there's never a random, crazy event and then, just absolute garbage where you just have filler content for the next 6 months. The closest equivalent would be maybe like the end of the Cell arc and then the Buu saga. But even then, it was a few, slow-paced episodes, and then we jump straight back into the crazy shit, right? So it's just like, who's willing to sit here and I guess like wait months and months and months and read chapter after chapter of just straight garbage? It's ridiculous. And then right after we get the spin-off chapters, we get the manga retelling of Superhero, which, to be fair, Superhero is not a terrible film. It's not by any means a terrible film. If you saw it in theaters, you'd know it's a decent film. I'd probably give it maybe like a 6 or a 5, right? And in case you think that's kind of low, I'd probably give the Broly movie about an 8, so I think it's a little bit worse. Well, I guess moderately worse than the Broly movie. And the reasoning is simply just because, the narrative of the movie is not very compelling, right? It just focuses around Gohan, reclaiming his spot as the strongest, which is, that's a fine plot point, but the issue is that that's been a plot point for years. That's literally been a plot point since the Cell saga, like I mentioned earlier. Like, who is watching that and it's like, wow, that's super compelling and I can't wait to see how this goes, because we know how it's going to go. Gohan's going to be the strongest for a few seconds and then he's going to stop training and do nothing. And the problem with how they do it in Superhero is that if you watch the Dragon Ball Super anime, like even ever since the beginning of the anime in Resurrection F, right, we see Gohan get bodied in his tracksuit and everyone's laughing, but he starts training with Piccolo, and we get these scenes in the anime where he is training, we see him, boxing with Piccolo and stuff like that. And then before the Tournament of Power, he trains with Goku and Piccolo. And I guess Tien is there too, but who really cares, right? And we see that he's able to match Super Saiyan Blue Goku, right? One thing I actually noticed when I was rewatching Z is that scene is basically like a direct mirror of when Gohan first goes Super Saiyan in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, right? Like, you have the scenes of Gohan yelling at Goku, telling him, oh, you can't hold back on me just because I'm your son, blah, 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 right? And it's supposed to signify Gohan reawakening, right? Becoming, I guess, the GOAT again. Not like literally the GOAT. He's just, he's becoming strong again, right? That's what that's supposed to signify. And that was being built up all the way from Resurrection F, right? Even in the Goku Black arc, we get that scene of future Trunks leaving and Gohan flies up and we see that he has his bang, right? And we see future Gohan in Gohan, right? Like, I know that sounds weird, but like Trunks looks at Ultimate Gohan, or I guess Dragon Ball Super Gohan, and he sees a reflection of future Gohan, signifying that Gohan now has the will of a warrior again, right? So it's like all this buildup has been made, so it's like to put Gohan in the spot again, not as like the main strongest guy, but as an active fighter, right? And even in the manga, he's over here fighting Kefla, and then we see him fight against Moro and his goons on Earth. So it's like, at what point does Gohan stop training? At what point does Gohan fall off and just start being lazy? Like, when does that ever happen? Because apparently in Superhero, he's so weak that he can't even lift his armor that he wore in the Cell Saga, right? He's too lazy and too incompetent to even do something like, I don't know, just blitz over to the other side of the city and grab Pan. Like, do you know how much faster than light Gohan is at this point in the series? A quick explanation, right? You have Goku jumping from one side of Namek to the other side of Namek, literally hundreds of times FTL right there. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's actually absurd. I think light goes around the planet 7 times in a second, so it's like, I mean, Gohan's been FTL since Dragon Ball Z, right? Like, he could literally be at Pan's daycare and back in 2 seconds flat if he wanted to, and he just doesn't, because he's just, I mean, I don't want to say it's not Gohan's fault, because that kind of assigns, like, I guess, like, sentience, but it's like, it's the writer's fault, or whatever, like, the narrative's fault, because they just keep having this character regress for no reason. And that's why Dragon Ball Superhero is kind of a failed project, because, I mean, unless you're just there for the pretty colors and the cool action, it's a hollow movie, right? And you might say, oh, well, you know, what are you there for? You're there for an amazing story. And it's like, not necessarily, but when the entire point of the movie is revolving around Gohan, and it's just the same tired narrative that we've seen time and time again, especially when that narrative directly contradicts whatever happened in the anime and manga, it's just like, that's stupid. That's so stupid. You compare that to the Broly movie, where the Broly movie's narrative isn't super deep, it's just, oh, the Saiyans live by fate, blah, 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 you know? And then that's how Goku and Broly and Vegeta meet, right? Whatever, right? And it's more so focusing around Broly and his story, right? That's a decent narrative, and you might be able to say, oh, well, the narrative of Gohan being built up to the strongest again was a better narrative than Broly or whatever. And that's, you know, that's debatable, that's subjective. I would argue that, like I said before, that since it's been redone 30 fucking times since Dragon Ball Z, and how them redoing it in Superhero contradicts what happened in Dragon Ball Super, I would argue that that's just a blatant bad plot point to have in the movie now, so I would just say that Broly's narrative is better based off that, but that's completely debatable, who cares, right? The point is that the Broly movie is an all-around better movie, okay? It has better animation, it has better, you know, fight scenes, right? Like, for example, the first fight scene we get in Superhero is complete dog shit, alright? It's completely trash. It's just Gamma 2 versus Piccolo. Like, who cares? And then the next fight scene I think we get is Gohan versus Gamma 1, which, to be fair, started off cool, but it kept flipping between Gohan's fight and Piccolo's fight, and both of those fights ended off in a little bit of, like, they're kind of like a gag, I guess, right? So, like, what I mean is, like, so Piccolo ends up just one-shotting Gamma 2, so who cares, there was no threat. And then Gamma 1 and Gohan, when we flash back to their fight, Gohan's got his hands in his mouth, or hands in Gamma 1's mouth, right? Like, they're just wrestling on the ground, like, they're not even fighting seriously. Like, it's not even a real fight at that point. It started off cool, but ultimately it devolved into a waste of time. Meanwhile, the Broly movie, you just have Goku, Vegeta, Broly throwing hands the entire time. It's just high-class action the entire movie, super fire animation, except for those CGI scenes, but point is that it's a much better, I guess, action-packed, you know, experience, and the narrative isn't boring, the narrative doesn't contradict anything, so from that point alone, or those points alone, I don't see how the Broly movie could not just be a standalone better movie than the Superhero movie, right? Like, disregarding the fact that obviously it's way more entertaining because you have fucking Blue Gogeta versus Super Saiyan Broly, like, that's ridiculously, insanely hype. You know, Cell Max versus Beast Gohan's cool, but no one cares about Cell Max, right? I don't think I've talked about how Cell Max is a complete letdown yet, but the entire marketing for the movie, well, not the marketing for the movie, because there really wasn't that much marketing, but the entire, you know, consensus for the movie going into it was, oh, they're gonna bring back Cell, and they're gonna bring back, you know, Gohan. They're gonna be the goats again, right? It's gonna be so cool. And then when we see Cell, he's just nothing. He's a complete mindless, just waste of a character, right? And then Gohan Blanco, you know, Gohan Beast, which is the white-haired form, right? He's cool, but he does one attack and does nothing, right? So I guess, you know, after that massive rant, I guess, the point I'm trying to make is that lately, Dragon Ball Super has been stagnating, okay? You go from 2018's Broly movie to, I think, 2022's Superhero, and there is a sheer lack of, you know, improvement. It just gets worse, right? The same thing is true for, you know, the anime, I guess. Well, I wouldn't say the anime necessarily because it stopped around the Tournament of Power, but I mean, if you want to count, you know, the fact that it just stopped completely as it getting worse, then sure. A point that I actually forgot to mention is that the anime could actually just be flat out considered to be getting worse, because if you have, you know, been keeping around in the Dragon Ball community, you might know about Dragon Ball Magic. And basically, to sum it up, it's going to possibly be Dragon Ball GT Type 2. You know what I mean? Because the premise for the film, or not film, the anime web series is what they're calling it. Basically, they're just going to stream the whole, it's supposed to be 15 episodes online. They're not going to actually air it on TV, which says a lot about, you know, the quality of the project, that they won't even air it to the live audiences. But, you know, basically, it's going to be about Kid Goku. Yes, Goku's going to be turned into a kid again, just like in Dragon Ball GT, you know, how everybody loved that. And he's going to be going around and going on adventures with the Supreme Kai, you know, Shin, everybody's favorite little, you know, purple midget that does nothing and is completely fucking pointless. So that's what the anime is up to currently after, what, 6 years since 2017 or 2018 since it ended. We're going to get this, so that's nice. And then the manga has been getting worse, no doubt about that, 110%, right? So the manga has 3, I guess, main, like, different arcs, right? You have the Granola arc, you got the Moro arc, and then you have, you know, the superhero arcs, which I've talked about a pretty decent amount. So I guess I'll talk about the Moro and Granola arcs, right? Now, I'll start off with the Moro arc, since that's probably my favorite arc in Super, right? And I don't really have too much to complain about. The only issues I'd have would be, like, things like, I guess, Vegeta's training not really amounting to much at all, right? Like, it's kind of funny how we get this whole, you know, Vegeta's trying to regain his pride and blah, 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 and find himself. And then it's like, okay, in the Tournament of Power, he's shit-talking Goku, acting like he's a stupid idiot for ever getting, you know, training from everyone. He's like, I've never trained with anyone, Jiren. I've never gotten taught anything by anyone, blah, blah, blah. But it's like the very next arc, you're going and training the same way that Goku did. And then what do you do with that training? You end up losing. It's like, you know, typical Vegeta stuff, you know, just no progression. He's just doing the same stupid bullshit he's been doing since the Cell Saga. You know, it's just nonsense, alright? I don't see how you could actually be a Vegeta fan, because every time he's on screen, he's just a laughing stock. Every time he gets an up or goes up a, you know, a level or whatever, he goes back 10 feet because he just regresses every single time. And I'll get into that more once I talk about Granola, right? Or the Granola arc. Also, right, one of the main driving factors of why Dragon Ball Super is as popular as it is, alright, objectively, is Goku and Vegeta, right? It's their rivalry, it's the constant battling that they have, which is kind of funny because they haven't really fought since, you know, the Buu saga, but that's besides the point, right? The whole main focus of the manga is their story, right? Their progression, their journey. So, it's really just, it really, I guess, it would be disappointing, right? If you looked at Vegeta and you saw that all of his progression is just infinitesimal compared to Goku, right? An example I could bring off the top of my head, since I was already talking about the Moro arc. You know, Vegeta goes and he trains on Yardrat, which is, you know, how Goku trained back in, you know, Dragon Ball Z's Frieza saga almost, what, 2 decades ago? So, he's a little behind. I mean, he might as well have gone and learned the fucking Spirit Bomb and Kaioken first, right? Gone from the ground up. But, you know, he went and learned, you know, Spirit Fission, he trained his ki or whatever, and he can maybe do instant transmission, whoop-de-doo, right? But what did Goku do during the same time period? He's training in a hyperbolic time chamber-esque dimension with a literal angel, right? Just boxing for 6 months straight, training his Ultra Instinct and refining it so that he could fight Moro, right? And it's like, how do you look at that and say, oh yeah, these two are both progressing the same? But basically, right, the main issue I have with Vegeta in the Moro arc is just that he doesn't really do much. He just kind of amounts to nothing. He goes back on his word, makes himself look like a clown, and does nothing with that. It's like, okay, fine. And then Goku, right? Goku's main problem in the Moro arc is that he seemingly is just irrational and stupid, alright? So, for example, right, Miras is specifically telling Goku at the start of the arc, and I think Jocko did as well, that Moro is on death row. We're gonna, the only reason he's still alive is because we couldn't kill him, right? So it's like, okay, great. And then after that, which is the first time that they're ever introduced to Moro, Moro, Goku witnesses Moro kill numerous Namekians. He knows that Moro has eaten multiple planets, right? So he's killed thousands and thousands of more people since Goku learned that this guy was already going to be executed, right? So the first time that Goku gets the upper hand on Moro, right, after Miras sacrifices his life, after telling him, oh, protect everybody, blah, 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 Goku's like, I don't know, is Moro really a bad guy? Let's see, let's give him a chance. And I know what people might say. They might say, oh, well, he just wanted to see if Moro would change, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine, but the point is that that's stupid, because we know Moro wouldn't change, okay? The entire point of Goku's arc in Dragon Ball Z, his morality arc, is him learning that not everyone will change, okay? And you can usually assess that within the first interaction of the character that you're fighting, okay? We know that Moro won't change. He's been this way for literally millions of years. That's why he's on death row. And Goku literally got told that verbatim by fucking Miras. So why is he sparing Moro? That makes no sense. Now, to be fair, the Senzu Bean doesn't really amount to much because he still gets beat up, and he's not even able to use the angel powers that he gets from Miras in fucking what's his face? Moro becoming a massive problem for Goku and resulting in Oob needing to be, called out and, save the day, which I have, basically the opinion that I've heard, right, is that basically, Oob represents what Goku's, answer to Miras is, in the sense that he likes to redeem villains, right? So he wished for Kid Buu to be better, and now Oob is a thing, so Oob comes and saves the day. It's supposed to prove that Goku made the right choice and blah, blah, blah. So he's not an idiot for trying to spare Moro, because maybe Moro would have came back as a better person and helped him out. But it's like, that's just stupid. We know that's not the case. And you can't even make that comparison with Kid Buu, because Kid Buu is it's not Kid Buu, it's Oob. He's his reincarnation. Like, it's not the same. It's not the same as rehabilitating him. Like, Kid Buu wouldn't have been rehabilitated, right? The same thing with Moro. He couldn't have been rehabilitated. And then we get into the, Granola arc, which basically is just the same tired thing we've seen over and over, right? Goku and Vegeta come in, and this is supposed to be them after training with Beerus and Whis for months on end, apparently, right? So the first time that Goku utilizes Ultra Instinct, it's like, oh, he's able to use it with his Super Saiyan forms now. He's supposed to be way stronger. But he literally burns out and runs out of stamina in like 3 pages versus Granola. Like, is that really supposed to show that he's gotten that much stronger, or that he has that much progression, when he literally is using the form for less panels than he was in the Tournament of Power? And I understand that, oh, less panels doesn't mean more time, but the point is that we don't get any on-screen indication that he's getting stronger, right? This feels the same every single time that we see Goku, right? He just doesn't ever feel like he's progressing. And that's even doubly true once you look into later of the Granola arc, when he's just using Ultra Instinct Sign. It's like, well, then what was the point, right? Like, it's such a stupid decision to just have Goku seemingly never be able to utilize his Ultra Instinct, right? He's always having to learn it and master it and then relearn it again and then use it differently. It's just like, okay, we get it, okay? We understand Goku has to make Ultra Instinct his own, okay? We thought that that's what he did before. We thought he learned how to master it. Apparently not. It's just a super inconsistent mess where they just keep changing it around. The same thing can be said for how Ultra Instinct was originally supposed to be the technique of the gods and blah, 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 and how Beerus was apparently using it in the manga arc of the Tournament of Power, yet now Beerus is like, well, I would never use such a stupid technique. Oh, that's not the only technique of the gods. But it's like, you were literally using it on panel. Like, it's just so stupid. And part of that comes from Toyotaro, right? And I haven't even mentioned him yet, but Toyotaro is the current, I guess, writer slash creator of the manga. Like, a Toriyama still oversees it and gives him like the final okay, but Toyotaro is the one writing it and doing all that. So it's like, it honestly just comes from his fault, right? And I guess you could maybe cut him some slack and say, well, he doesn't have an editor like oh my god, Toriyama did. So it's like, yeah, sure, he doesn't have an editor, sure. But ultimately, I don't think it's that hard, because all you need to do is maybe just open your eyes a little bit, right? Just take a step back and look, like, what has actually happened in Dragon Ball Super? What has Goku accomplished? How has he progressed? How is he different? What has he done, right? He has new forms, sure, but those forms don't even really seem to be that much stronger than he was before. Like, Goku's gotten multiple different Ultra Instinct states since the Tournament of Power, and none of them seem significantly different at all. The last point that I figured I'd touch on for why, Dragon Ball Super has kind of gone downhill, and not even more so Dragon Ball Super, but Dragon Ball in general, right? It would have to be the community, right? And now, don't get your pitchforks, right? Don't get your braziers out and try to, light me on fire. Because listen, I'm not saying that the entire Dragon Ball community is bad. Like, I'm part of it, I like the series. But you cannot ignore the fact that there are many, many fans who are genuinely toxic about the show, right? And now, this is true for a lot of communities, right? But, like Dragon Ball fans like to always tout, on Twitter and whatnot, Dragon Ball is one of the most popular animes and, medias in general, right? In history, right? So there's a lot more Dragon Ball fans than you would honestly realize. And you go on any forum, you go on Twitter, you go on Instagram, you can find countless waves and waves of Dragon Ball fans hating another anime. Goku solos this, Goku solos that, One Piece is trash because it'll never, compare to Dragon Ball. Luffy will never surpass Super Saiyan. And, the Saitama will never beat Goku. Goku Solar Suit. You guys have all seen it. It's just that energy, but the Dragon Ball fan energy, right? It's annoying. It's stupid. It's unbased, right? Or I guess, unfounded, because they don't have any reason to act so, arrogant, because their show genuinely isn't that good, right? It's seriously not that good, right? Like, I think they might have, like, actually gone a little bit senile from rewatching old Dragon Ball Z reruns since, like, the 90s, because, they seem to act like their show is the best thing to ever touch the planet, when in reality, like, yeah, it's okay. It's solid. It's alright. It's Broly movie was good, I'll give it that, but as of late, it's definitely not been hitting, and with this Dragon Ball Magic stuff, it's definitely not going to be, getting any better. One thing I will say, though, is that the general reaction to Dragon Ball Magic has been pretty negative, which is a good thing. You might say, oh, well, don't you want the community to be supportive? And no, I do not want the community to be supportive of bad products, okay? Or bad projects, okay? I guess, to be fair, we haven't seen what Dragon Ball Magic will be entirely, but based off of the premise and based off of the reaction, the community does not want it, okay? And that's a good thing. We should be vocal about things that we don't want, because, I mean, who the hell, like, who's not tired of this constant rerun garbage where we're just getting constant manga filler, the movies are just rerun character arcs? It's just nonsense. Like, we're tired of it, Go watch Jujutsu Kaisen or read the manga. Go read Naruto. Go watch Bleach. Go read or watch any other anime or manga series, and you won't find these same problems. These are Dragon Ball Super specific problems. And honestly, I think, in order to summarize it, it would probably be the result of a dying franchise, right? Toriyama seemingly doesn't give a shit about the manga. He said that Sandland is his personal favorite work. Toyotaro is struggling every single month to get a chapter out. He can't even draw the art panels half the time. Like, when you saw I remember there's this one panel, and it's like, he has dialogue of Dr. Hito, and he's like, go get him, Gamma 1, and then he draws Gamma 2 flying in, because he genuinely just misdrew the characters. Like, I don't know. It's really concerning, right? Like, you go to any other manga, and you don't find these problems. So, I guess that would be the conclusion of this video. And if you wanted my advice, if you're a Dragon Ball fan, you're tired of the constant bullshit, maybe you could rewatch Dragon Ball Z for the 3,000th time and reread the manga. But honestly, I would probably just say find a different manga series. I've been watching Baki lately. That shit's really cool. You know, you could read Berserk, you could go read Naruto, right? There's a lot of other manga series out there. You can read One Piece. You know, Jujutsu Kaisen's been heating up, although unfortunately the fraudulent one just got annihilated. So, you know, if you're a fan of that series, you're probably mad right now. But, you know, that's the end of this video. If you liked it, you know, subscribe, like, comment. I'm trying to get my subs up, like I said before. You know, I'll see you in the next one.